what's your man? How's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. The podcast, which some magazine describes as one that initiates profound discussions with rock and metal artists, allowing fans to discover the creative workflow of their favorite musicians and understand the factors that make the band succeed or fall from fame. We are also sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom computing needs. Get $100 off your tablet. Code CBPOD at darkfusionsystems.com. Link to the podcast below. Let's go to our feature presentation. A rising empire sticking their foot into the U.S. market, coming up with some great bands, and this is a brand new one from you. We have Craig from the band The Dark on the podcast. Their debut EP, self-titled EP, comes out on February 21st. We only talk about the creation of the band and how it all spawned from Alan Ashby's, the guitarist of Mice and Men, his influence, and want to create something that had more of that cyberpunk feel to it. How this all came to be, how disco played a huge part in the creation of this record, and how a backdrop of a modern LA has not only influenced the idea and the concept behind this record, but how recent events have evolved this to see where this could actually go. It's a pretty good one. You guys ready for this? And a great band? Yeah, you are. Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. You know, whenever I see an artist come from the label of Rising Empire, I'm always so fully into it because they put out as much great music as possible, especially out all of Europe. But lately, they've been kind of dipping their toes a little bit into the U.S. market, and we've got a brand new band that is coming from the Los Angeles, California area that has a 90s influence, like Nine Inch Nails, White Zombie, Fudge Tunnel Filter, some modern influences like Health and Deftones as well, to really bring forward something that is brand new, something that is fresh, but something that also has a great deeper feel to it as well. This band's self-titled EP comes out on February 21st, and it is honestly a great piece of work if you haven't listened to the singles yet. And when you listen to the full thing, you're going to enjoy it immensely. So please welcome Craig from the band The Dark to the podcast. So Craig, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you so much. That was quite the introduction. I appreciate that.
Dude, I'm be honest with you. Whenever I do these introductions, I got like a sheet of like notes, like, okay, go through everything I can in the band, go through the music and everything. But once I hit that like first, well, I'm like, alrighty, let's go for this. Whatever comes in my mind is what we're going to say. And that's what happened.
I love it.
Well, before with the release of this EP, man, how is everything going in your world? What's going on? And how's the excitement coming for the release of this bad boy?
We are very excited for the release. I think the singles had a better feedback than we expected. As a brand new band, we weren't really sure what to expect, and it seems like people have been pretty excited about it, kind of out the gate, which is like just crazy to us. So I can't wait for the whole thing to be out, just so people have like a collection they can kind of listen to and not just need to hunt for singles or whatever. I just want it to be out already.
Oh, I can understand the want for it to be out. I know you released Chemicals as the first single back in September of 2024. And seeing just the reaction from the first couple of singles that got released from this, there's a lot of like people going in on this, on you guys. A lot of people going in on the band because it has a modern take, but also has that feel like of the 90s at the same time. That all comes together in such a great amalgamated way. It just feels like it's going to be timeless at one point or another.
I hope so. That's the goal, I think it is important to, when I'm writing, to try to make something that I feel like just really feels good and could always feel good, and not really like chasing a trend at all. I think that you don't really get as great as songs that way. So I hope it becomes timeless one day. That'd be great.
Oh, I agree with you. When bands chase trends, you don't get that great of a song. You might get a song to pop off at a very specific moment in time, but then it doesn't have the legs to withstand the test of time. Of course, you have songs that, sound like a different like a different era. Like you have songs that sound like they were 80s hair metal because they were made in the 80s and that's when it happened. Or like, Freak on Unleashed by Korn. That sounds like it's 90s music. But it's timeless because it was fresh, it was new at the time, it was something different, and it created an absolutely great response. But the more you try and just hop on those same trends over and over again and just go crazy with them, though that music just doesn't hit. And I'll use Korn as a great example, that when they came out with their album that had a lot more dubstep behind it, it's like fans tend to kind of push away from that, and I think that might be one of the reasons why.
I agree. I think that people can kind of smell it. Like they can sniff it out when it's like, oh, they're doing this to be relevant, or they're doing this because it's popular right now, or like, oh, they're trying to do the thing that so and so did. I think that people can feel it. They can smell it right away, and like it just isn't as fun as when you're like, oh, this band knows what they sound like. This is just who they are and what they do, and they just do it well. And you can evolve within that, you know.
Mhm.
But I think, yeah, it's always important just to do what you think you do best, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've had a couple of conversations on the day that we record this too, and at some point in time, that point has always been made. Whether it was with you, with Brandon from Bleeding Through, or Tyler from Traders, everyone has brought that point up at some point. So let's be honest, there's a whole lot of truth to it if many people are thinking it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And so when it comes to the dark, when it comes to this whole entire idea that has been the creator of the band, just because your first EP is coming out on February 21st. The first single came out in September of 2024. When it comes to the creation of this band and the overall amalgamation that is the dark, how did this whole entire thing come to be? Like, what's the history and the origin story of the dark?
Okay, yeah. It's kind of I mean, I guess it's not that weird, but so Alan, our guitarist, has, he's been playing with Mice and Men for like a decade or something, and he still does and loves it, and I know those guys now too, and they're amazing people. He had over COVID played a video game called Cyberpunk, and like really liked the soundtrack to it. And I think there's a period of time where he was like, oh, I can't really do this kind of thing with mice. But I would like to kind of experiment with some more electronic stuff and a bit more of this like futuristic kind of music. And we had met through a mutual friend, and I was just producing. I didn't really have like a band or anything. And he was like, hey, I really like your voice. I think that your production would be really cool on this. Like, do you want to link up? And like, let's try making some songs together. So we did, and the first one became like one of our favorite songs ever, which actually didn't make the EP because of a complication with another producer. We had like brought it to another guy at one point, and he changed it, and then we kind of got into like a fight with him, and then we're just like, all right, we'll just come back to this another time. I don't want to deal with this right now. Let's just do the EP. So it didn't end up making it, but the song was awesome, and as we continued to write songs, we just like it got more and more metal, and because it wasn't metal at all originally, or like heavy, I should say, at all. And it just got like heavier and heavier and heavier, and then like I started screaming on it instead of just singing, and it just became riffier, and we were like, this is a band. I think this is starting to sound like a band. This isn't just like a writing project, because originally we were like, well, maybe we'll just write for video games or TV or movie soundtracks, pitch for syncs or something. Because I mean, I was really just producing, and had his hands full with mice, and like we just didn't really see a band as like being our initial goal with it. But as the music came together, it just became so much more of like a rock band or a metal band. This day he called me and he was like, I'm gonna reach out to my manager, see if he'd want to work on this with us. And like, I think we really could make this a band, like I think my touring schedule is going to lighten up, and like we really could do this as like a full on project. So we did, and we spent the next like 2 years just writing relentlessly to like really hone in our sound and figure out like exactly what we wanted to do, who we wanted to sign with, who we wanted to play drums and bass, and kind of fill out the rest of the band. And then I met well, no, actually I already knew Derek, but I was on a little festival called Shiprocked, which is like a touring cruise ship music festival. Yeah, you're familiar?
Yeah, well, when we're recording this, I know Shiprock is right about to happen, like the weekend after we were done recording this. I've got friends that are going out there. One friend going out there for the first time, another friend, I think that's her third straight time going. So yeah. I know it's a big thing. I know a lot of people like it.
It's a ton of fun. But I did it last year with an artist called Luna Aura. I was playing guitar for her, and Derek, our drummer, was at the time he was playing drums with her too, and we were rooming together on that little tour, and we just had so much fun together. And I was watching him. I remember the moment is like we're outside on the deck. Who were we watching? I always forget if it was Highly Suspect or Beartooth or who it was, but he was watching someone, and he was like nerding out so hard on their drumming. He was just like, oh dude, like watch his left hand. He's like freaking out about the whatever pocket this guy was creating. And I was looking at him like, dude, that's the kind of dude I want drumming in our band. And then I remember reaching out to Alan and be like, yo, I think I should call Derek and ask if he wants to play drums. Cause we were at the point where the EP was about to be finished. Like we had a booking agent and we were like, we were starting to like kind of make moves on it. It was still just me and Alan. And we're like, we need to like, find a band here. And, we wanted it to be a band. We don't want it to just be us. So I asked Derek and he was like, yeah, I had this project with my friend Nick. And we're kind of starting to let it go. I hadn't really been doing too much, but Nick is super talented as well. Like, could he, we could just kind of join your guys' thing and just put those pieces together, and Nick could play bass. And I was like, perfect. And I met Nick, and he's just like the dopest dude. And I already loved Derek, so it was a perfect fit. And they're both like some of the filthiest musicians I've ever met at their instruments. So it just kind of came together in like the final moments very quickly. And then it just like instantly jumped into like shooting music videos and all that kind of stuff. And then we thought it was going to, and then we started dropping everything, and now we're here.
So that is one hell of a story coming from, of course, getting to know Alan and working with him, creating this over a little bit of a longer period of time. Then Nick and Derek come in the band, then just having it ramp up out of nowhere. But that's what happens when you find something, you find lightning in a bottle. Of course, it's going to happen at some point in time, and you got to just ride that wave going forward, because you never know where it's going to take you. And if you would have been like, oh, let's hold off a little bit, or I'm not sure where to go with this, then you might not have ever done it, and then you probably maybe would have regretted it for not trying something that, maybe you wanted to give a shot to, especially after Alan played, Cyberpunk, and loved the idea behind it, loved the soundtrack behind it, was influenced by it, and able to take this in a completely different way and really put your own style and spin onto it. Absolutely fantastic way to go about it. I'm always a huge fan of origin stories, and there are times where I'm always saying, give me the origin story like you're opening up the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the first Iron Man movie. Like, that's how much I want, and that's how much I want to get into it. This might be one of the only times, or maybe the first time, that actually had me thinking that.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, it all felt very low pressure, because we weren't like, we got to start a band, and how is it going to look, and how's it going to feel, and like, all this stuff. Originally, we were just writing like, okay, let's just write the coolest shit we can write, because hopefully we can find someone that'll help us pitch it to video games or TV or whatever. So it wasn't about it needing to sound like anything that was on trend or anything current or anything cool, or, this band or that singer or whatever. Because that wasn't really the goal. We were just like, let's just write the coolest shit. And then as it kept happening, and as we kept writing more and more songs, we were realizing like, oh, I think this is the band, like, or this is a band, and this is the sound. Like, we don't really have to start tweaking things to try to make it, here or there. There's times where we would do a song and we do a chorus and be like, maybe we could make this a bit more approachable. Like, we do want the song to pop. And so there's little adjustments you make, because like, obviously you want people to like your band, but like, for the most part, yeah, it was just like, I'm glad it started the way it started, because I think we kind of figured out what we like without any external pressure. And then we just kind of had to put that on steroids and then start thinking about like, okay, how do we make this image match, and how do we make everything feel really cool, and, who the right people to play the other instruments, and who's the right label to sign with, and all those like kind of big boy conversations happened after we had already found our sound. But I think once you have your sound first, it makes those conversations easier, because you have a lane, like you kind of picture it going down. So that everything else is just kind of what aligns with this. And then you're not necessarily thinking like, oh, we could write songs that sound like this and pair with that person as too many moving pieces, and it doesn't feel as genuine. So, I've been in bands like that in the past. So it just felt like an ideal way to start it, just purely music based,
Yeah, because if you were rushing forward into it, and it's like, we have to start a band, we have to figure out a sound, and you're just always putting pressure on it, it's not going to come through with that organic nature. And I always think about this too. Think about, a lot of the biggest bands that are out there, a lot of the great bands that are out there, when they release their first record or their second record, when there's not that much pressure behind it, there's not label pressure behind it, and you just are able to create and just let things flow, and you're not having to meet deadlines. You have that ability to create all that, have it come organically, and that's where some of the greatest music really comes forward. I think Linkin Park's a great example with their first two albums with Hybrid Theory and Meteora, to really show how that could possibly work out in a great capacity. Mm-hmm. And by doing it the way you guys did it, with that lack of pressure, with the organic nature of it, it takes away so much more of those outside intricacies that force you to make decisions that might be based on timing, might be based on how fast can we get this out, or is this going to match up with a sound that is really hitting in today's musical world? You are allowing yourselves to create something that is truly within yourselves and truly just inspired by what was making you enjoy music at the time. Like with Alan playing Cyberpunk and enjoying the soundtrack for that and the idea and the aesthetic that that game ended up creating, it comes through to give more of that organic feel of this is what we want to do. This is where we want to go with the music. But what's the overall sound? We're not sure, but we're going to figure it out in the most natural flowing way possible. That's
Right.
how so many great bands, once again, create that sound that is individualistic to them. And then they can expand on that and grow and become those bands that transcend time, transcend genres, and transcend generations of people.
Yeah, I think so. And it's also like there's something to be said just about like when you're making something that you just think is cool without worrying necessarily about like where it's going. It's so much easier to have like a different type of momentum and a different type of like excitement because like you're just you're just focused on like holy shit, that I'm so excited about that song that we did today. Like, we should do another one tomorrow. It's so cool. There's less like you're not really worried about deadlines, things. Yeah, and there was times towards the end of the EP where we were starting to worry about deadlines and like sometimes I'll be worried about this, worried about that. Now it's like, dude, just just focus on the music. It's just we just gotta make good songs. You gotta make good songs. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, but what about this and that? He's like, just make good songs. I'm like, ah, shit, man, you're right. But when he first hit me up, I wasn't even making anything like this. I was working on a bunch of like disco stuff at the time and some other punk stuff, and he was like, I want to do this kind of a thing. And I was like, man, he doesn't even know. Like, I grew up on all of this shit. This is like my favorite shit. But it was just so funny. I was like, he has no idea. This is like what I do best. And he hasn't even heard that yet. And then when we really started diving into the songs, I think he had a bit of like a, oh shit moment. Like this is pretty solid. And I was just like, yeah, bro, I fucking told you. Like, so we were just like, and he would show up every day with just like the sickest demos, the coolest ideas, the dopest little riff. And I'd be like, bro, like we were just constantly getting each other so excited that like it happened in a way that was really genuinely exciting because of just what we were making together and hanging out and you know, creating this stuff. So I think that, you know, that genuine joy in making something is such better fuel than like pressure, you know?
So much better fuel than pressure, so much better fuel than I got to do this so I can make a certain amount of money. It's if you have that organic flow and that organic fuel of just wanting to do this and wanting to try this.
Yeah.
Again, that's where the greatness comes in. On top of that, when you're talking about the music that you were making before you started working on music for the dark, working with music like disco and punk, you can see those influences and those ideas transforming in these songs as well, especially in the two songs that are not out as singles by the time of this recording. It stands out. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I've heard the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
the next one that's out it's disco as fuck. Like these are a lot of these songs are disco songs. And I feel like people don't even know that. Yeah, I grew up on nu metal. Like all my first favorite bands are all nu metal bands. Like still to this day, like Slipknot's probably like my favorite band or Deftones. But I grew up on like Slipknot, Meshuggah, you know, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, Korn for sure. Tons of Linkin Park. And then just over time, I got into like the modern heavy scene, like the metalcore scene of like the 2000s, 2010s, because I grew up in that too. And then the last couple of years, you know, it's been all over the place. But like, I was working on a bunch of disco stuff for a bunch of different reasons, different people. It's just a lot of fun too. I was bartending at a club that just played disco all the time, and I was like, I could do this. This is sick. And then I was just like working on that. I was always writing just like nasty punk stuff for myself and a couple other artists. And I don't think the punk really has come through in this band at all. That was just what I was working on at the time, coincidentally. But like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of disco in this stuff. I mean, yeah, a lot. I think it's like if you notice it and you listen for it, it's all over the place. It's all, and a lot of the techniques and the things I learned doing and producing disco have ended up in this project too, whether that is audible or not. But just a lot of like the layering and the blending and the combining of elements, I think is it helped me produce this a lot. So I'm glad I did that, even if I don't, you know, make it anymore. It helped me produce this, I think.
It helps you produce it, but also there are so many other times where we see artists and we hear artists that are thinking or influenced by a completely different style of music than you would even expect, put it into the music overall, and it just comes out in a great way. Bringing up disco and really with you working on that and then seeing how that funneled into all of these songs reminds me of the time when Dave Grohl was talking to Pharrell Williams and told him about how so much of Nirvana stuff when he was drumming came directly from disco, and how the intro beat for Smells Like Teen Spirit was directly from the Gap Band.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's true. I mean, dude, disco fucks. Like, people, I think, have this idea in their mind of what it is. I don't want to make this whole podcast about disco, but I think they'll have the idea in their mind of like what it is, and it's like, dude, if you get into it, like you get into some solid playlists, like go find your shit on Spotify, look up new disco, and it's awesome. It's just really cool. I mean, it got me back into scratching turntables, and I hadn't done that in like 10, 15 years. There's all these cool ways of like blending what is a real bass and a synth bass, or what's a real drum kit or a drum machine, or just finding like, you know, the certain kind of sounds. Like there's just habits you get into when you're producing that. When you're producing other stuff, you're like, you know, it just seemed to be really helpful, which I'm sure you could say about anything. I'm sure producing anything helps you produce anything else, and it does. But that just seemed to, I kept finding myself using things or techniques I was using then while producing this EP and now this album, that I'm like, thank God for that, you know, that really worked out, because that was kind of just a weird phase I was in for a year or two, and I was like, damn, it really helped. So I don't know, it's pretty sick.
It absolutely is. I always look at I've looked at disco the past 6 years of getting into this podcast and really, you know, getting more and more into music and more of the overall arching that thing that is music and the history of it. I always look at disco as this way, where it's the sum of all the parts of disco. When it came together, especially in the 70s, was the perfect time for it. And it was specifically picked for a specific audience when it came to the combination of all the parts that is disco. Now, there's a lot of people that don't like the sum of those parts, but if you take all of those intricate parts that were in there, the different beats, the different types of production, the different patterns of instrumentation in there, there is so much in there that can be used and influence so many other things. So don't be surprised if all of a sudden you're listening to metal and there's a riff or there's a drum pattern that actually came in from a disco influence, because the quality of the parts is there. It's just the sum of that parts didn't connect with everybody. But that's music.
Yeah, I mean, so much of this, like, you know, kind of new cyberpunky metal thing, which is also crazy that it's like kind of a thing right now in the metal scene too, because I was like, I did not expect that when we were starting this project. In fact, when I first heard another band put out a song that kind of sounded like us, it was like back when we were just still like writing tons of songs a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh, fuck, man. I thought we were like the only one doing this. I was like, shit. And I was like, by the time this comes out, like, it'll have been a thing for a little bit. And that's kind of a bummer, I thought, you know. But it's funny hearing that it comes out. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of these things, they sound like old, you know, little disco arpeggios or something that ended up becoming acid or acid house or whatever. Like, you know, these things all kind of came from the same place. But yeah, I don't know. It's just funny how it all came together, and I guess it kind of came together at the right place and time too. It sounds like, but yeah, I'm excited for everyone to hear the rest of the EP and kind of hear what we're talking about.
Yeah, and the one song that specifically had me thinking this on the EP is the fourth song, Circles, because I'm just looking at what I wrote down, because I went through every single song. I always write down notes for every single song I listen through. And I'm looking at this right from the inside. This song opens with this industrial electronic burst that set you in this like techno mood. And then they're going into like this flowing alt rock meets industrial electronica, like Muse in a German 80s club.
That's 100% it. Yeah, you nailed it. That's sick. Yeah, dude, totally. It's when Alan sent me the original version of that song, it was almost entirely Four to the Floor. And I was just like, no, I think there's a breakdown or something in it. But I remember when I kind of got my hands on and add all that production, electronic shit and everything, and like kind of started structuring things out. And I remember being like, yo, you think we can get away with the entire song being Four to the Floor? Like the whole song being a disco beat. Like, can we do that the entire song, you think? And he was like, yeah, I think so. and we I remember sending a version in, and I think it was our manager that was just like, mate, like, no, you can't do this the whole song. And I was like, yeah, we totally can, man. There's no fucking rules, man. We can do whatever we want. But then I broke it up. There's like one point in the pre-chorus where we changed the drum beat a little bit, and I remember like just we're sending it to Derek and being like, hey, like what do you think you'd want to do here? And we changed it a little bit. It's like and then back in the four on the floor, just to break it up for a second, because I was like, yeah, it is pretty much entirely the same beat, which I thought was why it's cool. I wanted it to be like, and Alan too, we wanted it to be like a very clubby metal song, like something you could arguably play in a club kind of. But we ended up changing a little bit so the chorus and the pre-chorus aren't so unrelenting. But there was a time when that chorus wasn't in there at all, and it just went from the pre-chorus right back into the riff. Like it just didn't have the chorus. The original version just didn't have the chorus at all. It went from the little pre-chorus and the drop just right back into the riff. And I was like, that was, I thought, the coolest version of it. But that was one of those moments where it was one of the last songs we were writing for the EP, and we were on a deadline, and we're like, all right, I know if we put this in, we're gonna get some pushback. Like we'll put a chorus in it. It feels like we probably should. And now I really like the chorus. It's hard to sing sometimes, but it's a good chorus.
I'm a little surprised. Now I want to hear the original version without that chorus in there, just going back to that overall riff, because not gonna lie, I really liked what you guys did with the chorus on this one as well, because it felt like we get this more open, but like Bring Me the Horizon style hard rock flow. Think Can You Feel My Heart, but when you listen to the intro for Can You Feel My Heart, just the way it is, that could be taken from disco as well, with how that beat ends up rolling, with just some more clean, energetically flowing vocals. Really show that like you want this like potential high again, but being stuck in life to not be able to find it, just in the way that I was taking the song. I'm like, going with that more style here, especially sound for the chorus, was the way to go, as it connects the electronic industrial parts of the song effortlessly with some sort of contrast in there, but allows the vocals to show a want for so much more, even if you're feeling stuck and if you don't know exactly where to go. Like, this is a great move overall to include that chorus in there. So I loved it. But my question now is like, can I hear the other version of it without that chorus? Because now I'm curious to see where it actually was going to
go. Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is just cut the chorus out and slide the file over. I mean, it was, I think, I mean, just exactly how it is. Just like skip the chorus and just go back into the riff. Like just take out the choruses. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. Now that the chorus is in there, I think I'd probably hear it and be like, there's no hook. Because there wasn't a hook. There's no hook. It was just kind of just was a song with no hooks, which I thought was cool. But yeah, it's I also didn't think it was going to be a single. I thought it was going to be too weird. I thought it was just going to be like a cool clubby track for the EP. And then when we put the chorus in, we're like, oh, this might be a single, actually. This is pretty good. Like, maybe we should keep some choruses in there. I don't think you try to pitch a song for radio with no choruses, but I like the way it turned out, but it did have a couple different like fun iterations of it.
Hey, to be fair, one of the greatest songs, one of the most well-known songs across the entire world, is a 6-minute operatic insane song without a chorus, and that is Bohemian Rhapsody. So it can work, and it can be absolutely epic.
Yeah. The song was only like 2 minutes long without the choruses, though. It was really short. It was really, really short.
Well, I'm gonna want it when I actually get a chance to download the song as an MP3 file. I'm gonna put it into my mixing software just so I can cut out the chorus and I can hear it without that chorus and see how it actually sounds.
Yeah. Do it. That's how it was for a while. Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be wild. One thing I do want to ask about the idea of the band, especially the EP as well, was especially when looking through the press release for it and everything that was connected to it that I got sent. So like it said, it was created as a project to reflect life in modern day Los Angeles from the polluted, corrupt, and morally bankrupt metropolis that it is. I know that you said that, especially Alan listening or working on this and coming up with an idea from like Cyberpunk 2077 with the idea that's behind there. How did that all come into play to really create the idea that was this EP from a thematic standpoint?
Well, Alan's influence was musical. It wasn't conceptual. I don't want to throw him under the bus here because he I think loves LA, and California in general. He's from California. He's been in LA for a while. I I think that is referring to my lyrics, I'd imagine. Um, and the truth is, I mean, I've been here 6 years, and I moved here with not a dollar in my account, and I've just been like, spent a long time just kind of like fighting to survive here, and like, living in like all kinds of crazy apartments or really scary areas, or just like not had food in the fridge, taking the bus to work. I was always sick. I'm working like 3 different jobs. Like, it was just brutal just to survive and make music. I didn't own anything but studio stuff forever, and like in a lot of ways it's still the case. And I think that there was times when like I would definitely just be on the bus on the way to work. I write a lot of lyrics in the bus. For whatever reason, I just like listen to the demos over and over in my headphone and just be on my phone, and my notes app, just making stuff. And I just would gravitate towards writing about the things I was just seeing around me, like in real life, just working and moving around the city. And I don't know, you see such extreme wealth and such extreme poverty in like the same places. My inability to afford healthcare, and then like being sick all the time, just having to deal with it. Um, and the only answers you get basically are like, well, it is what it is. Like, and you're like, I mean, all right. Like, so it's just like, I think there's times, and then just like the social dilemmas of the kind of people that are here, which is very much a stereotype and is not true a lot of the time, but sometimes it is true. There's all kinds of people in LA. But it's just a fucking hard city to be in. And I think, I grew up in New York, but didn't really feel the same way about New York. There's something about New York that I felt like there's more culture that I really enjoyed there. And for whatever reason, in LA, I just didn't have that same relationship with it. And maybe it's because I was older and had more relevant struggles as I got older, things I know. I wasn't worried about healthcare when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I just, a lot of it was that. So I think I was writing about these things that are in my brain, and then the music has this futuristic feel, so you kind of can't help but start to think like, well, where are things going? What's it going to be like in the future? How shit is it going to be? And so sometimes I'm writing about where I'm at now. Sometimes I'm writing from a point of view of being in the future and looking back at like, oh, how do we fuck this up so bad? But it definitely was my kind of like just my notes on it, my thoughts on it, in a way that's very personal to me. It wasn't just like everything's fucked. It's just like I am in this place where I am hurting because I feel like this is a bad system, or I'm in a bad place because of this system, or maybe I hadn't played the system as well as I could have, or whatever it is. But it's very personal. It's not about anyone else or anything else or anyone's fault. It's all very much me. Just kind of feel like I'm on the bottom of this, totem pole in a or social ladder in a major city. So I don't want to throw anyone else under the bus and say that someone else is inspired by that, because
Okay.
I don't know if that people are going to like that or not like that, but that's how I felt. And since then, things have only gotten better. So I don't really necessarily feel that way now. Like, as I've kind of put my life together a bit and had better habits and get myself to a better position, being more responsible and things, like I don't necessarily feel as strongly that way as I get older. I also have seen, like, not to jump into that, but like I've also seen the way that the people have come together in Los Angeles with these fires of the past week, and like there's something very moving about that, where you're like, no one gives a fuck about anyone else. You can see it every single day, and then like this happens, you're like, oh shit, turns out they might actually really care about other people. I've seen so many people donate and help deliver donations and create awareness, start fundraisers, like, offer their houses, offer their studios to people. And I think that it's really cool seeing how we've all kind of come together the past week. So I don't know. I think there's an ebb and flow to it, but yeah, did that answer your question? That was very long-winded. I apologize.
That was long-winded. You not only answered my question, but you answered the follow-up question that was going to end up leading into that, because of course, first off, yeah, if this was lyrically from your aspect, and the other guys, especially someone like Alan, loves that place, let's not throw them under the bus totally. Like
I don't want anyone to be like, yeah, these guys fucking hate LA. Yeah. It's like, no.
It's
Craig was a sick, broke, miserable piece of shit for a little while and was writing about it, and now he doesn't really necessarily feel that way anymore. It's just
but
it was just a time of my life where I was struggling, and that's where I was struggling. That's all.
But you're taking it from a time in your life, and you're also, you're using that as the backdrop of it. It's like a movie. It's like a movie when you have a setting, and the overall setting is just to amplify what the overall issue really is. And the overall issue is more of a societal, it's more of a structural issue. It's just using that backdrop because that backdrop of what Los Angeles was for the past couple of years for you amplified what the struggles that you were going through were, and the disparity of wealth and the overall disparity of opportunity and the situation that you were in, having to work 3 jobs, take the bus to work, not able to afford healthcare, and potentially wondering, is this even like at times worth it, going through all these struggles that are there. But it makes sense that you're putting that out there because people, especially if you're younger and you're trying to make it in a place that is completely foreign to you. I'm not saying foreign as in foreign country, but foreign as in a situation where, like you, being from New York, going out to Los Angeles, that's 2 different sides of an entire, country that's over 3,000 miles wide. You're going to end up having those differences. You're going to feel like you're in a place that's completely different. That would be like even if I would travel and go and try and do this exact same thing in the Los Angeles area, being from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it's a completely different realm of possibility. It's a completely different area that's going to impact me differently because of versus where I grew up, what I'm used to, what I know. Going out there, it's different. But I love what you said too about, especially the devastation that these fires have caused for the past week while we were recording this, but the positivity from people that has come out of this. So you're seeing that people aren't all about just themselves at times. People do care. People are willing to help out those that are actually in need. So we want to potentially see this happen more often, but at least we know that in this absolute terrible time period for the city. And I hope that there are so many people that if you've lost stuff, that you end up able to get back on your feet, you're able to get the help you need, and you're able to rely on the kindness of the people around you to help pick you up in that time of need, that we end up actually seeing more of this positivity radiate out into the future and see people actually care more about people than themselves, not only in that situation, not only what's going on in Los Angeles, but have it be an influence for the better of people wanting to help out people worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really refreshing, and it was just like I don't know. I don't want to say it was a surprise, but it was just like I think the speed and volume in which everyone took action was just like a holy shit, man. This is like, I mean, it was remarkable. It was really incredible. To the point that the last place I went to, I was dropping off these clothes, and they were like, "Please stop, no more, please, no more." And I was like, "What?" They're like, "We don't need any more clothes. We're so full. We have way too much clothing." I was like, "Holy shit, damn! We actually have like overfilled the donation centers. That's crazy." Like, so it was, yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
That stands out with the fact that there have been many different places for donations, many different places you could like help out. And the reason they have to say no is because too many people have opened up their hearts and opened up their conscience, I would say, even to be able to be human and help out one another.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of shocking, actually. I was like, damn, I can't believe you're saying no. Like, this is crazy. So yeah, exactly.
But again, it's a beautiful thing where the EP was going, and then how time has progressed and how it's, from where you were when you were young and you're feeling all these things, feeling about that inequality, feeling about, the fact that all the struggle that you're having to go through living in an area that is, you're trying to make it success in a creative aspect. And it's, incredibly difficult. And you're seeing that, absolute imbalance of possibility really right next to each other between very rich, very poor. But it's something that you see, it's something that you experience. And you want to be able to tell that story and put that out there because there are plenty of people that are feeling that not only in cities where they're moving and trying to make it big, but even in their own area as well. If they haven't been able to get out of, where they grew up or where they first started, if they're struggling in that aspect, it helps give us an idea of, where you were at that point in time and the influence that it had on you. And now seeing how the success is coming your way. Okay, now that there's a possibility for this to get better, and then see how this is happening with so many other people now opening up their hearts, opening up their own humanity to help out their fellow man or woman or anybody else that it identifies as a human that is in need. Like, I hope that this continues on. I know it's not going to be easy to see this continue on because in the past when things have happened,
it's been a crazy fucking week and a half. It's been really intense, but I like I was saying kind of before we started recording, I think it's hopefully supposed to get better over the next week or so. Like, the winds are going to die down. I think the fires are higher percent contained than they've been so far. And I think we are on the way up. So that's relieving because it's been crazy. I mean, we're still, like, I'm wearing a mask when I leave the house and stuff. Like, it's funny. Some people have been like, oh, you're so far from it, it's fine. And I'm like, dude, it's not like woods and new construction that burnt down. It's like hundreds of houses that have like had like TVs and microwaves and refrigerators and plastics and metals and computers that have melted and is in the air now. Like, that's like fucked. You know what I mean? Like, breathing in melted refrigerators and TVs and shit by the hundreds. Like, so it I don't know. You have this anxiety walking around where you're like wearing a mask again, like it's COVID, which is, like, I imagine some people probably are a bit triggered by that. Maybe not, but it's weird. You walk around with there's smoke in the air and, sirens flying all over the place. And these donation centers are on every corner and everyone's freaking out and how houses are burning down and people are starting GoFundMe's and you're in a mask and you're like, dude, oh Jesus, this like what happened so fast, it's like, feels like everything's falling apart. But in the midst of all that, you see like the one silver lining is like, holy shit, people are really coming together in a way I have yet to see in Los Angeles, outside of like the Black Lives Matter movements. But that was still like I only got to see glimpses of that because I was back and forth from here to New York. But you start to see this like really beautiful, like, coming together moment despite all this. But I don't know, it feels like the world's falling apart, but I feel like, I don't know, it's just crazy.
It feels like the world's falling apart, but the thing is the humanity of people is what can bring it back together. Right. And you're seeing that happen at the beginning of this whole entire, recovery journey with all these people making donations and willing to help out. I hope by the time we release this episode, though, that the fires have all been contained.
I hope so,
and
too.
all extinguished for a while. I'm not talking about like them being contained right when I release this. No, I want to contain for a while. I hope that's the case.
And that this is hopefully old news for everybody. Yeah.
And what I hope is we continue to see people explore that humanity, come together and help out, because even if the world is shit and you want to make that change in the world, events cause it. Events are the trigger, but people cause that change. When people come together, they cause that change, and I want to see that humanity come through. And I know you got to get going to your next one, Craig, so I got one more question to ask before we wrap this up. You ready?
Yeah.
This is something I enjoy asking every artist I bring on the podcast, a way for us to get to know more great music that's out there and for you to help support the bands that you love as well. So I'm going to ask you for 3 of these. Can you name me 3 bands or artists that you love that you would love to see more people get into right now?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm throwing you off on that one. It's like, boy, we were talking about music. Nope. Now we're talking about
artists
getting
that I would love people to get into.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have one of my very good friends, Jack, is, that was so horrible. They're all my good friends. I hang out with Jack a lot because he's in LA. In a band called Dead Poet Society, and they're getting huge, but they're getting very big. But I always tell him, I'm like, you guys are gonna be the biggest band in the world. And he's like, no. I'm like, no, you guys are gonna be the biggest band in the world one day. So if you haven't listened to them, they're gonna be the biggest band in the world. They're fucking awesome. They're so good. But they're called Dead Poet Society. Another one that I don't know them at all. I don't know anything about them, but I listen to them all the time, is called Bad Nerves.
Okay.
They're a UK like Brit punk band. I think they're incredible, and I listen to their first album like all of the time, like almost daily. I fucking love it. It's super sick. Bad Nerves, they're called. Number 3. Who else? God, I'm gonna open my Spotify. Is that terrible? What have I listened to in the past day?
No, because at this point in time, I've done the work. 55% of people I ask this question to open their Spotify and see what they're listening to. So
yeah, I just listen to I listen to things all over the place. Let's see. Who I've been listening to a lot. It's all things that are already, I think a lot of them are really big bands already. Um, like I listen to so much. I still am listening to like Slipknot and Gojira and like it's like exactly what you think I'd probably be listening to. I feel like. Um, let's see. Oh, you know what I've listened to a lot? I don't know how to pronounce it. Um, oh God, don't play. Arc de Soleil. I don't know. It's ARCDE and then SOLEIL. Arc de Soleil. Arc de Soleil. Arc de Soleil. Um, it's so cool. I put that on like just a radio that's just like Arc de Soleil radio. It just plays all similar stuff. I just play that while I drive around all day because I mean it's pretty sick. It's just very like cinematic, like groovy jam band. Like I feel like it has some kind of Latin influence in it, but that's pretty cool. I listen to that a lot too. I kind of a lot, honestly, but I don't even know how to say the name, but I think those are my three right now. I don't know. They're all over the map, but yeah,
Hey,
cool.
I love it. It's all over the map because then we get to know what you like, what you're listening to, and we get to see where some of those influences come in as well and what might end up influencing you in the future. So the more the merrier, right?
Yeah. I don't know if any of those are necessarily influences. I just like them. They're all over the place. I don't think we're going to have any Latin jam band influence anytime soon, but
You'd be surprised,
man.
You'd be surprised.
While I make coffee in the morning and kind of do my little chores, I that's what I'm jamming.
Fair. Yeah. Well, Craig, I want to thank you for taking the time today to be on the Chord Progression Podcast. I'm going to end this episode with three things. First things first, when it comes to the debut EP From the Dark coming out on February 21st, you're going to want to listen, you're going to want to stream the whole entire thing, and you're going to want to say no with the band when anything in the future comes your way. So how are you going to do that? You're going to go to description of the podcast, say Find the Dark online, links, labels for everything. Social media where you can stream the EP, where you can, download it and buy it and all that stuff. Get merch. Everything is going to be down description below. So I'm doing all the hard work for you. I'm doing all the searching for you. All you got to do is go down there, click the link, and you're good to go. Now it's time for number 2, Craig. Whenever I've guests on the podcast and I join the podcast, I tend to make a promise as a way to say thank you. I appreciate you taking the time, and I wish to continue to support the band in the future. And the promise is this. It is a when. Because it implies this will happen. We just don't have a day or time yet. But when I can see you perform live for the first time, I will come and find you. I will say hi to you. But the real promise is first round's on me.
Okay. You can get me a Diet Coke. I don't drink at shows, but
that's why I say first round. It's not like, so it's like, hey, if I know if there's a lot of people that don't drink, it's like, hey, I'll take a Diet Coke. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That constitutes it. We're good. There's someone that wanted pizza, and I'm like, yeah, we can do that.
Oh yeah, totally.
Perfect. And now it's time for number 3, Craig. As we bring this episode to conclusion, I cannot end this by saying goodbye because I made you a promise. I love this conversation, and I would love to be back in the podcast again in the future. So goodbye is not the way we end this. I got to end this by saying, I'll see you later.
Okay, I'll see you later. Thanks so much, man.
Woo! Well, folks, my interview with Craig from the band The Dark. Now it is time for Kevin's final thought. So when I got the release for this EP and the band, it said it was created as a project to reflect life in modern day Los Angeles. And I did look at the press release, and it said, from the polluted, corrupt, and morally bankrupt metropolis that is Los Angeles. Now, I'm glad that Craig cleared up really where it came from an artist that was trying to make it, especially early on, and how he was feeling during that time, before really starting to gain a little bit of traction with the dark, with some of the inequality you see from the super rich and the super poor, to how people treat each other, to just the overall climate that had been created. But of course, in early January of 2025, we saw the breakout of the wildfires in Los Angeles, probably the most devastating wildfires the state or even maybe America has ever seen in terms of, overall impact on human life. But I love what Craig said about how people are coming together and showing that humanity by trying to help out those that have been affected, by donating what they can, by just being there for people and trying to help out in any way. And it shows that, even when you're writing about a place that's polluted, corrupt, morally bankrupt, that humanity can still live, humanity can still thrive in it. And I hope to God by the time this episode releases that those wildfires have been gotten under control and have been extinguished for quite a while, and that the continued outpouring of positivity from humanity by helping out one another is continuing on and continuing to show change in society today. So I want to thank Craig for joining us in this podcast today. Please follow along with The Dark and check them out with a brand new EP coming out on February 21st. Links in the description of the podcast below. I got labels for everything there for you, so you'll be able to know which one to pick. Go and check out the music, check out the band, follow along with them and everything like that. Be sure to also subscribe to the Chord Progression Podcast right down here. New episodes of the podcast every single Tuesday and Thursday. You can also follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Hit the like button on the episodes, help push in the algorithm. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, we are as well, so definitely go down there, check it out, and follow along with us. So I want to thank Craig for being on the podcast, and that's going to be for me, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of these episodes. Big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah.